Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm live. Hello. Yes, there were Christmas stockings, and yes, they are still up. And this is not a fire. This is an aromatherapy diffuser because I am sick. So, in a few minutes, thank you for joining. I thought I would first just start with a hello because it's been a minute since I've been on the internet, or at least on YouTube. So I thought I would maybe start by saying hi, letting you know a little bit about what's been happening in my reading life, and then I will attempt to share my screen and go on to Storygraph and update the books that I read in 2024. Um, and I would love to talk to you if you also use Storygraph, because I'm really excited about the platform, more excited about the platform than I am about Goodreads. Um, but I haven't used it because time and a lot of other things. So that is the plan for today. I think I'm going to stay on for about an hour. Um, So if you are here and you are part of the Onyx Pages community and you would like to chat, then please feel free to say hello in the chat. So maybe what I'll do is create a banner. It's been such a long time since I've been on this platform. Um, so it's kind of cool to be here. Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to say hello, everyone. Please say hi in the chat and let me know what you're reading, whether you use Storygraph, and what your reading goals are for 2025. Okay, so I'm going to make a sticker and I'm going to add the banner. Let's see, hopefully it'll work. Did it work? It did not work. Oh wait. Yay. There we go. That's kind of... Do we want it like that? No, I don't think we want a ticker. Hold on. Let me edit it so that it's all up at the same time, so it's not going to scroll across the screen. It's just going to live there. Okay, how about that? Save that. There we go. Hello, everyone. Please say hi in the chat and let me know what you are reading, whether you use Storygraph, and what your reading goals are for 2025. Okay. All right. So 5 of you are here. Hello. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my reading year in 2024 while I'm working in my planner right now. And I will probably start working... You know what? I'm going to start working in my reading planner, which I'll get. Okay, I'm going to start working. So this is my Melanin Eclectic Reading Planner. And you know that I'm a big fan of Melanin Eclectic, and this is where I store like my thoughts about books and things like that. And I think this is the third reading planner she did, I want to say. But this was the first one she did that was undated. And I love an undated planner because sometimes I can be very inconsistent in my recording of my reading. And so sometimes I need a planner that I'm going to be able to use for multiple years, maybe, or months. So this reading planner, undated, chef's kiss. I did, when I got it, I did put the month stickers on, which less than ideal for me I should have waited because some months I didn't read or even use my planner. But what I'm doing now is I am going to use the months, but it just might be multiple years. So, for example, if you go to the January tab, there might be books and comments from January 2023, 24, 25, and that's how I'm going to use the planner. So, what I am going to do for now is the first thing I'm going to do is just check to see if there's anything in my planner. If I started a list of my 2024 reads, and I don't think I have. Like, I even have I have a list of my favorite books from 2021, but I don't think I have anything from 2024. I really use this planner. Maybe what I'll do is do a flip through at some point, but I'll just give you a bit of a visual as to what I'm seeing. So I don't know if you'll be able to read this, but this was like my 2021 new release list, and I had all of these books that I had written down that I thought I would want to read, like A Crown So Cursed, Etta Invisible, Ophi's Ghost, Within These Wicked Walls, A Place Beyond Her Dreams, Reconstruction, How to Recognize the Demon Became Your Best Friend, Afro Puffs Are the Antenna of the Universe, Living While Black, Magic Land of Shadows, The Half God of Rainfall, Palm Wine Drunkard, and What It Means When a Man Falls from the Sky, and Unburnable. So in 2021, that's what I thought I would be reading. I don't think I read any of those books. Or if I did, it was only really one or two of them. And I made some notes using the 7 calorie shell reading review system. These were my notes from Nisi Shaw's Speculation that I read. I had some video ideas, lots of stuff. I used my washi tape and the calendar, and I took some notes from books that I read, and this is How to Stay Alive and Emergent Strategy. Yeah, lots of next steps. I think I was still doing the Octavia E. Butler slow read with Tati at that point. So yeah. Anywhoomst, let me find a page. As you can tell, I'm a bit sick. Let me find a page. I have found a page. I found a page before January. So let me find a page in January, and I will label it January 2024. And then I will, 2025. And then I'll write down the books that I read in January 2024. So I see we have a few comments. Hi, RC. I haven't set a reading goal yet, but I plan on trying immersive reading this year to get out of my reading slump. Okay, RC, what is immersive reading to you? What's immersive reading? I think the first thing that comes to mind when I hear immersive reading is hybrid reading, which is what I do most times now, which is to read with my eyes and to read with my ears. So I'm listening to the audiobook at the same time that I am reading the words on the page. And I find I really love hybrid reading because when I hybrid read, I not only get to interact with the words, but I also get to interact with how the words are spoken. And some of the narrators are just fantastic. I really love books that are narrated by actors. You just get so much in their voice that might not have come across on the page. And it's such a pleasurable experience, I have to say. So that's cool. Okay, I found a page that I am going to use for that I'm going to use for my 2024 books. I'll see maybe if I can. There might be a way for me to let you see what I'm working on the page, but I don't know if I have the technology set up for that. That might require too much. Okay, so listening to the audiobook while reading the book at the same time. Yeah, okay, cool. So you call that immersive reading, and I call that hybrid reading. Cool. I like your use of the term immersive reading. That's cool. And you said, when I hear hybrid reading, I think of switching between different formats of the same book, but not using them at the same time. Interesting. What does hybrid mean? Let me just look that up. Let's see. Hybrid. A thing made by combining two different elements. Okay. So hybrid. And then, so two different elements, I think, and then immersive is, what does immersive mean? Providing, involving, or characterized by deep absorption or immersion into something, such as an activity or a real or artificial environment. Yeah. When I think of hybrid, so when I use hybrid, I think of it as I guess the two different methods. Like when I'm reading on the page, I've got that's one way of reading, and then when I'm listening to the audiobook, that's another way to read. So there's two ways to read that are happening at the same time. So that's why I use hybrid. And then in terms of immersive, I find that some audiobooks are immersive and some are not. And I like the audiobooks where you have like sound effects and music. I can't remember the last book that had that, but I remembered one. I think it was How to Be an Adult. There was a lot of like music or something. Maybe it wasn't that in the background, and that just made the experience, in the words that I would use, more immersive. So it's interesting. I'm going to think about the use of immersive reading as well. Thank you for explaining. So Mayama or Mayama. Hi, it has been a long time. Hello. Good to see you as well. You're looking for your next read now. You just finished reading Eva's Man by Gail Jones, and you do use Storygraph. How was Eva's Man? Let me see what Eva's Man has to say for itself. Eva's Man book. I wonder what genre is this. It's a gripping psychological portrait of a woman unable to love for fear of pain, imprisoned, a tormented life of sexual abuse and emotional violence. Yeah, this sounds imprisoned for the bizarre murder of her lover, a life tormented by sexual abuse and emotional violence. Sounds like the topics were pretty intense. How did you find the read? How was it for you? All right. So if you are watching, please feel free to say hi in the chat. Where are you? Where are you in the world right now? How are you doing? What are you reading? Do you Storygraph? And for Mayama, do you like Storygraph? How do you use Storygraph is also a question I have. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do, and feel free to do this with me, is I'm going to choose a sticker. This is my Melanin Eclectic sticker book, and I am going to find a sticker in here. I think I'm going to use one with somebody reading, and This page has, I get stickers from a lot of places, but one place I get it from is Black Papier, because her stickers are watercolor, and watercolor is my favorite type of painting. So I've chosen a sticker. It's this Black woman reading. And I'm going to just stick it on the page and write 2024 reads. 2024 reads, also known as books I read in 2024. And let's make a list, because to be honest, I don't even remember what I read in 2024. So there are a couple of ways that I keep track of what I read. And I'm grabbing my 3 journals from 2024. Okay. So now I'm just flipping through from January to see if I happen to write down what I actually read in 2024. And it looks like at the beginning of the year, excuse me, I think I was reading The Color Purple at the beginning of the year. But let's see. I'm pretty sure I read The Color Purple. Either I started it or I was reading it into the year. But let me just make sure of that. The Color Purple was an amazing story. And one of the things that I want to talk about in future videos, which there will be at some point, is a kind of like realism and Afro-surrealism. I should make a note of this. The Afro-surrealism that you see in some writing, like The Color Purple, or at least the surrealism that you see in The Color Purple, as well as the magical realism or the like speculative, magical, spiritual elements in a lot of writing by people like Alice Walker and Toni Morrison, for example. I read a book earlier this year that had that kind of magical quality to it called Promise. And another one as well that I read earlier this year. Anyway, so a lot of books about, like, Black folks living in the southern U.S. In communities and with their families, and just kind of navigating racism. Just really, really interesting stuff. Okay, so The Color Purple was definitely a book that I read in 2024, and it may have been the first book. I'm going to keep on. Okay. I also read No Gods, No Monsters. If you're in the chat watching this, can you just type in the books that I say? So we can have it at least in the chat. So the first book was The Color Purple. Please and thank you. Okay. And the second book that I saw in my planner was No Gods, No Monsters by Cadwell Turnbull. And that was a really wonderful, thank you for saying bless you. Cadwell Turnbull. So I read this as part of an Instagram-based reading group facilitated by Kiki. And her Instagram channel is If This Is Paradise. And I think prior to me joining the read of No Gods, No Monsters, and then its sequel, We Are the Crisis, which I also read last year. I think they read The Lesson, which was Cadwell Turnbull's first novel. I think they read that before. I hadn't read that at the time, but I also read We Are the Crisis by Cadwell Turnbull. Have you read any of Cadwell Turnbull's books? Because if you are a lover of speculative fiction and enjoy writers who write sort of in the dark, shadowy, futuristic spaces, oh, Cadwell Turnbull is masterful in craft. Like, it was incredible. Like, there were things that Cadwell was able to describe in both of those novels that I just like, different textures of darkness, like a shadow within a shadow, the absence of light. Just, I'll see if I can maybe let me look through the book and see if there's an example of his writing. I'm gonna have to do a standalone video on that. I'm gonna write this down. Just his beautiful writing, stunning writing. I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to read those books in community. So many people on that list were much more familiar with his work and some of the source materials that he used than I was. So it was fun to hear them make connections to things in real life. There's a lot of like secret society stuff and conspiracy theory stuff that got woven into the text that I think added a lot of value for people who were familiar with it. Okay, let's see what some of you are saying. Okay, so in terms of Eve's Man, Mayama, the book was hard to read, but important. I never read Gail Jones before. I use Storygraph to keep track of my reading. I'm getting used to the app, but I like it. Cool. And did you start from, did you come over from the other book application that shall not be named anymore? Or did you just start with Storygraph? Okay, yes, thank you for writing down the book. So yes, The Color Purple, No Gods, No Monsters, We Are the Crisis. Thank you, Maima, for taking notes. I appreciate it. Hi, Dee Dee. How are you, love? How are you doing? Happy New Year. What are you reading? How's life? What might your reading goals be? Dee Dee, do you use Storygraph? And if so, how do you like it? I'm still flipping through. So I'm now in February 2024. And at this point, I was not doing a lot of journaling. So I don't even know if I would have written down what I was reading. So my sources for reading include my written journal and then my Audible app, and then my Libby app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my journal, because that will capture books that I read that I did not hybrid read, which would be the minority, but I still want to capture those on my list. Oh, cool. I have, and now I'm in April. See, I barely journaled. Okay, so now I'm in April, and I read a novella. This is for your benefit, Mayama. So Loving Sapphoa. That was the book I read in April. Loving Sapphoa. Sapphoa is spelled Safoa, and it might be pronounced Sapphoa or Sapphoa, but Loving Sapphoa. And that was it was a sapphic vampire love story novella, sort of in the same tradition as Joel Gomez's The Gilda Stories. And Loving Sapphoa was written by Lisa Wemakor, Wemakor. And it was a sweet story that I very much enjoyed. I love a vampire story, and if the vampire is Black and queer, it just makes my day. So there was Loving Sappho, and it was really great. Life is living, indeed, indeed, and most of it does not belong on the internet. So I hear you. Nice to see you. Hello, Desia, or Deja, Desia. How do you pronounce your name? You've been using Storygraph for a while, 3 years. Okay, great. And you just finished reading The Trees by Percival Everett. I have heard of Percival Everett. I don't know anything about their writing. Maybe I should. Percival Everett, American writer. The Trees. Okay, what is that about? The Trees. Okay. When a pair of detectives from the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation arrive in Money, Mississippi, or Monet, Mississippi, I don't know how to pronounce it, to investigate a series of brutal murders, they find at each crime scene an unexpected second body, that of a man who resembles Emmett Till. After meeting resistance from the local sheriff, his deputy, the coroner, and a string of racist white townfolk, the MBI detectives suspect these are killings of retribution. They then discover eerily similar murders taking place in rapid succession all over the country. The past, it seems, refuses to be buried. The uprising has begun. In this provocative page-turner that takes direct aim at racism and police violence, Percival Everett offers a devastating critique of white supremacy and confronts the legacy of lynching in the United States. Well, how was the book? Do you read a lot of Percival Everett? Deja, short for Khadijah. Beautiful. Thank you, Deja. So, Deja, do you read a lot of Percival Everett? And how did you find the book? It sounds very powerful, especially to read in these times. Nice beginning of the era book to read. How was that? Okay, you did use that one. Okay. Okay, you are reading 54 oh goodness. Of course you're reading 11 books. Okay. You're reading 54 Miles, Northanger Abbey, and Paul Laurence Dunbar. And you use the Storygraph, but you don't like that it isn't user-friendly. I hear you. Okay. Okay, so first let me look at 54 Miles. "54 Miles," a novel by Leonard Pitts. It's the freestanding successor. Oops. Young Adam, who has been raised in Harlem by his white father George and black mother Thelma, goes back to his parents' home state of Alabama. Oh goodness, I just lost it. Okay, the freestanding successor and next novel by the author are the critically acclaimed, author of the critically acclaimed The Last Thing You Surrender. I've heard that one. 54 Miles launches forward 20 years into the fateful weeks of March 1965 from the infamous Bloody Sunday March at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, or Pettus Bridge in Selma on the 7th, to the triumphant entry into Montgomery on the 25th that climaxed the voting rights campaign and the families who find themselves confronting the past amid another flashpoint in American history. Young Adam, who has been raised in Harlem by his white father George and black mother Thelma, goes back to his parents' home in the state of Alabama to participate in the voting rights campaign, only to be brutalized in the Bloody Sunday melee. He is still recovering from this when he is struck a heavy emotional blow, learning for the the first time and in the cruelest way imaginable that George, who has raised him as a son, is not in fact his biological father. Rather, Adam is a child of rape, a discovery that explains so much about why his mother is sometimes so distant. Adam is sent spiraling by what he learns, and Thelma is drawn back for the first time in 20 years to the South she hates and fears. The reckoning that results may result in an incalculable loss. Meanwhile, Thelma's brother Luther is also spiraling, but in a different way. 42 years after his parents were lynched before his eyes, and 20 years after the man who led the lynch mob walked out of court a free man, Luther has just made a shocking discovery. He's found the murderer, Floyd Bitters, helpless and enfeebled in a rest home, unable to move or even to speak. The old man is literally at Luther's mercy. And Luther, who has never overcome this trauma that defined his life, is suddenly forced to relive it all again as he grapples with the awful question of what justice now demands. I'm sure you're all noticing a connection between 54 Miles and Eva's Man, I think, or the other one that the Percival Everett one that Deja was talking about. Which one was that? The Trees. Okay. So maybe those are recommendations if those books are sort of talking about similar things. Okay, and then there's Northanger Abbey. Oh, a novel by Jane Austen. Coming of age novel and a satire of Gothic novels by Jane Austen. 17-year-old daughter of a country clergyman who is now in training for a heroine. Jane Austen. Okay. And Paul Laurence Dunbar. I guess that's the author. Paul Laurence Dunbar, American poet and novelist. Short story writer of the 19th and 20th centuries. Beautiful. Very cool. So are you reading his poetry or novel? Thanks for sharing. Sammy Bliss, always lovely to see you. Hello, Happy New Year. Oh, so thank you for writing that. So The Trees was so good. Cool. What genre would The Trees be considered? Okay, let me take a minute. So for those who are just joining, I'm right now looking at the books that I read in 2024 because I need to include them in the Storygraph. I call it Storygraph. I should have just said the Storygraph. So I am now in April. I don't have any books written down. My journal has come to an end, and I know what happened. So my birthday is in May, and when I had my birthday in May, I decided that I was going to bullet journal, and so I bought an actual bullet journal, and I used the whole thing. And the good news is that I did a very good job of writing down the books that I read in 2024 once I started bullet journaling. So I'm in a way, way, way better position to quickly flip through my journal and remember what I read because my recording was that much better. I think. We'll see. I think I wrote it down in my monthly reviews, or maybe I even had a collection of books I read, but I'll flip through. All right. Yes, good morning. Okay, so Samri, you've been reading romance novels lately, that and nonfiction books. So pop in a few titles and let us know if you like them. Okay. So you've read The Trees and it was excellent. Cool. Also, Dee Dee, I don't know what kind of mood you're in, but if you'd like to join me live, you are always invited. I will warn you that if you do join live, I will try to convince you to read Black speculative fiction. So, I mean, join at your own risk, but let me know and I can send you a link over Instagram. Okay, good. So, I don't actually know what I read in May. I'm going to go to my monthly planner because I know what I read in June. Yeah, I don't know that I read anything in May. May is usually a pretty busy month for me because of my birthday and planning stuff. Last year we had an amazing birthday party. It was 80s style. It was off the chain, so good. Okay, so in June, I read Chain Gang All Stars. Chain Gang All Stars. I think that was by Nana Adjebrenya. Nana Kwame Adjebrenya. Chain Gang All Stars. That book, man, it was so good. Nana Adje, has anybody read that? Nana Adje Kwame, or Nana Kwame Adjebrenya. And Brenya wrote Friday Black. That was the first, I think that was their first published work, and it was a collection of short stories. Fantastic. And Chain Gang All Stars was so amazing. And the narration on Audible was chef's kiss impeccable. Like I literally had a crush on one of the characters, and I usually don't crush out on book characters, but man, it was good. It was a very, very good book. Lots of really complicated love too. Lots of complicated love. And it was I think it's a meditation on the prison industrial complex and how it impacts Black and brown bodies, queer bodies, trans bodies, and poor bodies. Really, really great. So then after Chain Gang All Stars, I read a nonfiction book. And I've been thinking about speculative fiction and speculative writing generally. And I'm like, are there books that are not fiction but are still speculative? And so the nonfiction book I read was Negotiating While Black. Negotiating While Black. And to be honest, I bought the book because the person had my name. And I was also interested in the title, but the first thing that I saw was my name in a book, and I was like, that never happens. So I picked it up, and I think her name is Damali Peterman. And my name is Njeri Damali, so I was like, oh, there's a person named Damali who wrote a book, and it has Black in the title. Yes, ma'am, I'm going to buy that. So I bought it, and it was really interesting. It was really good, and I do think that it has elements of futurism to it because she's talking about all of the additional challenges that Black folks and she talks about Black folks intersectionally, the challenges that we experience when we are trying to be persuasive and to get our points across. So there was that, and it was great. I also listened to that in hybrid format. So listened with my eyes and also my ears, and it was really good. Okay, so that looks like those were the books I read, I want to say in June. I'm, again, just flipping through the pages to see what comes up. Deja. Okay, so it's your first time reading Percival Everett. He wrote the popular book called James. Nice writing, but didn't do much for me, maybe because it was more of a crime fiction. Okay, and maybe Dee Dee, is that what you were responding to, that he writes satire? 54 Miles is the second part to The Last Thing You Surrender. I see. Okay. And I know, I think The Last Thing You Surrender, I feel like I remember you talking about that on your book club. It's not bigger than a book club, your book community. I feel like I think I heard Tati talking about that book. Cool. Okay, and you were reading his biography that's called It's called The Life and Times of a Caged Bird. Oh, interesting. That obviously reminds me of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And that's, yeah, that's really cool. When I think about that poem, and then I think about him because he's a poet, right? Maybe poetry is one of the ways he sings. And his biography where he talks about himself, or or it's not an autobiography where somebody talks about himself, might answer, why does this particular caged bird sing? Very cool. Okay, what else did I read? I am still flipping through, and I am in July. Ooh, July was busy. I can see I went away actually in July. I spent some time in Barbados and Dominica, and I participated in the Island Scribe Retreat, which was wonderful. And I had planned to read some things while I was there, but I did not. I think I started something on the plane, but I wasn't able to finish it. I had to finish it when I got back, but I don't remember what it was. So it's looking like so far in 2024, I read 6 books. And that's okay. Yeah. Now I'm in August and I don't have any books written down. So now one cool thing about, yes. Okay. So I read the Black Stars collection. The Black Stars collection. This is a collection of short stories. I want to say there are 5 or 6 of them, and they're only available on the online mall that shall not be named. And there was one short story written by Nalo Hopkinson, who is my favorite author. Another by Nisi Shawl, another by Nnedi Okorafor, another by what is her name? I don't even know. But those are the 3 or 4 that I remember. Oh, I think Eugen Bacon wrote one, but you can find those on that platform. I think that's the only platform you'll be able to find that collection on. And those were some really interesting stories. Nisi Shaw's story was like a modern day techno mermaid story. And I was like, what? What? And it was based off of this song. I think all the Black people moved underwater because of racism. And so they decided they found a way to live underwater. So racism couldn't get to them. Very interesting short story. So I read that collection in August, it seems. Okay. So many things in August went on. So yes, I know what you were laughing at. You were laughing at me saying come so that I can convince you to love Black speculative fiction. You liked that one, but you didn't love it. Were you talking about what were you talking about here? The Last Surrender one? Tell me more. You're finally reading the Earthseed duology after learning that Butler's sci-fi stories are loosely linked to... Oh my gosh, cliffhanger much? Loosely linked to what? What were you going to say? The Earthseed duology? What am I missing? Oh, you mean like Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents? You know what's funny? I don't think of it as a duology. It is well, I mean, she died before she could finish the Parable of the Trickster, which was supposed to be the third one. I think we've been left with two books. But I wonder, I don't know if she had envisioned it as a trilogy or as like just writing in the world. So yes, you are reading that. How are you finding it? There's so much out there right now. Octavia knew. And there are debates about her prescience, whether it was based in science, whether it was based in history, whether she was psychic. I think for me, where I'm currently landing on that debate is that, number one, that's a false dichotomy. Whether she's psychic or just a great researcher, like I think that the two polarities are artificially separated and made to be mutually exclusive. We do know that she was an excellent researcher and that she was extremely thoughtful and she was extremely observant. And one thing about Octavia Estelle Butler was that she paid attention to what was going on around her. She didn't blink at the hard things, and she extrapolated these decisions into the future. And she also looked back, right? Like if you follow, oh my gosh, now I'm getting passionate about her. Okay, let me take a stretch. So if you look back, her first published work, Kindred, writes it in, I think, 1979. So she writes Kindred. Kindred is Afro-retrofuturist in a way, right? It's futurist because there's an element of like, well, some would say that it's got a futurist element, which is the time travel. Some would say that that's not futurist because the time travel was happening to her and it wasn't something that she was able to do through technology and couldn't necessarily control or predict. And some will say it's so that there's no futurism at all. But I also think that it's like a term that I learned through Nisi Shaw. I think it's retrofuturist because she was the future. And she was able to go back into the past and be the future. And so to the people in the past, she was the future. Like, here's an aspirin, here's how you can deal with this issue, here's how to set a bone, here are the decisions that you can make knowing what I know about the future, and so on, right? So she's time traveling, and then of course in present day, Dana has more insights about herself based on things that had happened in the past. And there's this really very interesting thing that I don't know if you watched the movie, the show Kindred, and I have to read Kindred again to see if this is true for me. But she gave us very clear parallels in her book. One parallel was the theme of labor, the plantation versus Dana at the we meet Dana at the beginning of the book, if I recall. She is at an employment agency trying to get like jobs, right? So that's a parallel. So we see labor, Black women and labor in the past and in her present. Another parallel is relationships. So we see a lot of like romantic, sexual, and sensual relationships in the past. And then her relationship with Kevin at the present day. Then we have like race relations. So we see the race relations from the past, but then also Dana interacting with her neighbors, which we see more of in the actual show. But there's a parallel there, right? Like, who did you live around? How safe were you in your community? We also see parallels around law enforcement, and the like the management and regulation of Black bodies. So we see that in the past, and then we see it also when Dana is visited by the police in present day, because like the neighbors are reporting that they're hearing screaming from her house, like when she comes back in time. So this whole like mirroring of like what happens in the past, what's happening now, I feel like that in a way was Octavia E. Butler saying like, dude, if you just look, you will see patterns. So all you have to do is look at what happened in the past, look at the decisions that got us there, then look what's happening now, look at how we got here. It's literally a straight line. God has changed. So, you know, and we are God, she says, right? That we are all a part of this. Well, she doesn't say we are God. She says God has changed, and that, you know, we can know this change. We can be a part of this, our decisions, what we do, part of that. And that's all like, and if you read Earthseed Books of the Living, if you read those passages all together, then you see, right, that we can shape God, is what she's saying. God is change. And so we can shape change. We can be a part of that through the decisions that we make, right? We can decide to go along with what we're seeing around us. We can decide to resist it. We can decide to pretend that we have no role to play and then let it just happen. Like we can do that. And so, anywhomst, all this is to say that Earthseed was a thing, and I think that she was a combination of things, and I believe her, and she should be believed when she says, look, calling me psychic just means that you get to opt out of your role in all of this, because calling me psychic makes me different and makes me unique, as opposed to being a regular human being who's just looking around and not blinking and saying, this is what's going to happen if we don't do anything different. This will be inevitable. We can make this inevitable by not doing anything about it. Anywhomst, thanks RC for that. What was the rest of your sentence? Chain Gang was going to be your next read, but you plan to start adding less heavy fiction into your reading this year. Okay, cool. So where are you going then with that? I get it. I sometimes when I read something really challenging, I have to be really deliberate about what I read next. I'm like, I need something fluffy and happy, and I want to see how that lands. If I read something funny, maybe it's a comic, maybe it is a children's book or something middle grade. Like, give me somebody who like finds a magical orb and makes everybody happy. Like, just give me something else for a minute. So, where has that taken you? I'm like spending a lot of time hunched over. My desk is like not, you know what? I should see if I can make this a little higher. I don't think I can, because I'm like hunched over. I don't know where my thing is. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah. So what else are you reading? Hit the thumbs up, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love a like. That's where Maya's title comes from. Maya's title comes from Maya's title. Bless you. Bless you. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I'll get there. Okay. I've listened to a couple of those collections and really enjoyed them. I think you were talking about Black Stars. Cool. Chain Gang All Stars. Thank you. They're loosely linked to each other. Earthseed happens first, then the Patternist, and then Lilith's Brood. They are obviously not about the same characters, but they are in the same timeline. Okay, RC, speak on it. I want to hear your view on how they are all connected in your view. So Earthseed happens first, then the Patternist, and then Lilith's Brood. Yeah, I'd love to hear your view on specifically how they are linked. So how are they linked? I'd love to know. I know that in Clay's arc, there's a lot of references to, and we talked about this in the Octavia E. Butler slow read, and the videos are still up if anybody wants to go back. If you're reading Octavia E. Butler now and you would like to be a part of like this conversation that we had, all of the videos are up, and so you can read that. You can watch the videos as you're going through the books, because some of the things I caught, some of the things I did not. But a lot of people were talking about how the ship, like the Mars colony, was the result of people going to Mars. I think it crashed or something, and there were some people who were part of the Earthseed community from Parable of the Sower. Yeah, Parable of the Sower, who were on the ship or on the colony. I don't know what it was. Anyway, I forget, but I'd love to know how they're linked in your view. You're enjoying Parable of the Sower and find it funny that Butler kind of references being an observer of history or seeing the future. Yeah. And she wrote them around like 95, 96. And I think people were like, in interviews and stuff, people were asking her like, are you psychic? She's like, I'm not, stop it. So she must have written in a lot of those questions into particularly Lauren Olamina's character. Like Lauren Olamina was just so beautifully concerned with what's happening in the world. And remember, she was just a teenager at the beginning of Parable of the Sower. Yeah, she's just a teenager. She started, and she like turned 16 or 17 at the beginning of the book. I love that they made her that young. I think people forget how young Lauren Olamina was. Can you imagine a Black girl being like, come with me. This is a better way to live. Just follow me, friends. Yeah. Okay, so I then, after reading the Black Stars collection, I read Black Heart Man by Nalo Hopkinson, my favorite writer. And I think I read that, around September. And that was a wonderful, wonderful book. I really enjoyed it. I need to read it again. I'm sure I missed some things. But Nalo Hopkinson actually came to Toronto and did a talk. And it was a great talk. And at that talk, I met some people who had been a part of the solar-powered Afrofuturism slow reading group that is on Facebook. And they encouraged me to start it up again, which we're going to do in 2025. So I guess low-key announcement. Hold on, I have to blow my nose. And we're back. Okay. Oh, bye, Mayama. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. It's really nice to see you. All right, so for those who have joined, I'm just making a list and chatting. I'm making a list of the books that I read in 2024. The Color Purple, No Gods, No Monsters, We Are the Crisis, Loving Safwa, Chain Gang All-Stars, Negotiating While Black, Black Stars Collection, and Black Heart Man. And I'm going through my journal and I'm writing everything down in my Melanin Eclectic Reading Planner. And I know I read a lot of books towards the end of the year, and particularly over the holidays. I think I might have read 4 or 5 in December, which was wild and wonderful. So we're getting into the last part of the year, and let's see what else I read. Then I'll update the story graph. Oh, after reading Earthseed, you plan on reading Far Sector. Yes, Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin. Yeah, how many volumes of that comic are there? I feel like I read the first and maybe the second. And are they continuing it? You're going back through the slow read when you finish the book. You're going to go back through the slow read when you finish the book. You started following during the Lilith's Brood section, and it introduced you to Butler's work. Oh, wow. Well, that is one of the reasons why we did the slow read. We wanted people to become familiar with Octavia E. Butler's body of work and to have like an online community of people who enjoy her writing and want to do more with that writing. So I'm really happy that you joined and then you read and that you're reading. So thank you for circling back and sharing that. What is a good alternative to Audible? Well, we've got about 8 people in the chat, so that's a question for everyone. I use Libby. I'm in Canada. I use Libby, and then I isolate my search filters to only give me audiobooks. So I listen to audiobooks on Libby. I always check Libby first. So those are the only options I have. Those are the only ways that I've listened to books. But I'm wondering if anybody else who has more information than I do could speak to that. And then I went to Word on the Street, which is a book festival in Toronto, downtown Toronto, and I met Sarah Raleigh. And Sarah Raleigh is, she's from Southern Ontario, and she's been writing Black fantasy for a while. She wrote a trilogy. I don't know the name of the series, but one, The Fates was the first one. And I think it's like a girl superhero situation. So she wrote that. And then she wrote, where is it? I haven't read it. The Bones of Ruin. And it is, there's like a tightrope walker, black girl, black woman, circus something or other. So she has powers, I think. I haven't read that, but The Bones of Ruin is out. And then the sequel is The Lady of Rapture. And it was just really interesting to hear her talk about why she started to write. And it was really cool. So I'm looking forward to reading those as well. But I met her, and I think she has a podcast, or at least has been a guest on several podcasts. And that was really cool. So just looking in my journal to see if there's anything else. Okay, so that's up to September. And then, okay. You've made the connections between the 3 series that the creator spoke about. I haven't read all of them yet, so I can't really speak on it. That's fair. That's fair. Okay. Oh, you're welcome. No worries. I don't do lives a lot, but when I do, I like to talk to the people out there about the things. Okay, so in October, I read Blackheart Man. Ooh, okay, let's talk about Eden Royce. Has anybody read Eden Royce's work? So the book that I read was a middle grade book called The Creeping of Dogwood House. Can somebody write these titles in the chat? So the title, I think the last title, okay, can you type into the chat Negotiating While Black? So Negotiating While Black. And then the Black Stars Collection. So Negotiating While Black, the Black Stars Collection. And then Blackheart Man. Blackheart is all one word, so Blackheart Man. And then, so Negotiating While Black, the Black Stars Collection, Blackheart Man, and The Creeping of Dogwood House. The Creeping of Dogwood House by Eden Royce. Now, Eden Royce is a descendant and member of the Gullah Geechee communities. And I love her writing. I very much love her writing. I read another of her books. I'm just looking because I have Conjure Island here. But there was another middle grade book that I read. But, oh, her writing is just so wonderful. And there's so much rich history in what she writes. The Creeping of Dogwood House, you know, when you read her books, you learn about different kinds of root magic and different kinds of elements of the conjure practice. So in her first book, there's a lot of like cooking magic, earth magic. In The Creeping of Dogwood House, I learned about hair burning. And I picked up a few of her other books. I interviewed Eden Royce, or I think, no, I didn't interview her. Kiki interviewed her in a video that's up on our channel on Onyx Pages. And she's just lovely. She's a great writer, lovely person, so prolific, and really is very purposeful in what she's written. So anyway, you should check her out. After The Creeping of Dogwood House, I read Newer by Nnedi Okorafor. I hadn't read a lot of Okorafor in a while. And I'm really glad that I returned to Nnedi Okorafor's writing. It sometimes just shocks me. Sometimes her writing, what she puts in front of our face, just can be so shocking. But most of Noor takes place in the desert and in the midst of like a nomad, like in the context of a nomadic community. There's the intersection of the continued exploitation of African resources, the lack of care for people of the land, challenges to capitalism. There's, you know, relationships. There's, you know, human augmentation. Lots of very interesting themes. I don't know if I read this in 2023 or 2024, but Womb City is another book that got me thinking, you know, where the author is playing with notions of the body, augmentation, ableism, technology, power, and identity, right? So Noor was really great. And Nnedi Okorafor, oftentimes her books, they're, you know, she writes them inside of a universe, so they might not necessarily be sequentially connected or include the same characters, but the themes and the concepts are all there, are all present, and sometimes the geographic locations. Oftentimes when I read Nnedi Okorafor's work, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I have to go back and read. I have to read like the Book of the Phoenix, right? Because I think that the scientist in that building, or the scientist who wrote the article that the main character was reading, it was the father of the scientist or the doctor in this book. And then it's like, are these really connected? Chloe, who has a channel called Thistle and Verse, she mapped out, she read all of Nnedi Okorafor's work to that date, and then she mapped out how the stories connect. And then she put it on, she drew her map, and then she uploaded her map to that platform that shall no longer be named. And then Nnedi Okorafor saw it and corrected it and was like, yeah, you've got almost all of this. Here are 2 things. And she's like, that person was actually this person's blah, blah, blah. And it was just really amazing. I love when writers do that. Somebody else who's doing that is P. Jelly Clark and the Jinn, the dead Jinn in Cairo, like sort of universe. And I have only read one book from that universe, or that world, and it's great. P. Jelly Clark, whew, love the writing. I read it's not Riot Baby, it's a novella. Anyway, P. Jelly Clark's writing is amazing. Fenderson Jelly Clark. What else? So that's October. You believe that Far Sector is the only 1 volume? Oh, yes. I'm not a comic person, so I say the wrong thing. So there are issues in a volume. Okay, so there's 1 volume, 12 issues. Great. So I think I've only read 3 or 4 of the 12. Can you buy it in a collection yet? You use the Libby app for audiobooks, and you have Spotify Premium, which offers 15 hours each month. Oh. I did not know that Spotify has audiobooks. I don't think, yeah. Yeah, I should check that one day. Okay, let's stay on task. This video is going to stop at some point shortly, and I think all I'm going to do right now is write down the books I read in 2024, and then I'll do another chatty video where I'm actually putting them up on Storygraph, because I don't think I'm going to do that now. Negotiating While Black Stars collection, Dogwood. Yes, the Creeping of Dogwood House. Okay, thank you for that. And then the book that I read after The Creeping of Dogwood House was Noor by Nnedi Okorafor. Noor. Noor by Nnedi Okorafor. Thank you very much. And I'm in October now. Just looking at my monthly wrap-up pages, because that's where I write down the books. I now have these book stickers that I use in my daily planner. And that way, when I'm flipping through, if I see a book sticker, I know that I've written something about a book. So I'm now in November. So I finished Noor, and then I started the book Promise. And Promise, I'm not going to remember her whole name, but it's Rita something. I don't know. Rita something. I'll look that up. Promise. It was good. Promise was good. I have thoughts. It was a bit meandering, which I liked and also didn't love, right? I had thoughts in terms of the reading experience. And the plot. There were some plot points that were emphasized earlier in the book that didn't really get finished. So I had mixed views about that. But I also wonder if it was sort of the style of that type of writing. Yeah, but I really enjoyed reading it for the most part, except for those issues. Okay, November. What else did I read in November? I know that I read a lot in December, that's for sure. So I read Promise and my buddy read Promise. Okay, yes. So now we're in December. So I read When We Were Birds. When We Were Birds. And I had this funny experience. I was on the subway or on a train, a commuter train, and there was this woman who saw what I was reading, and she's like, "Is that When We Were Birds by Alana Lloyd Banwo?" And I was like, yes. And this woman was also from Trinidad, where Alana Lloyd Banwo is from, and it's really cool to just like talk about Trinidadian speculative fiction. When We Were Birds was an excellent book, and I found out about this book from Sajid, Books in My Social Life, who's a Trinidadian, and and recommended this book to me, I think in 2021. And I purchased it, but I only read it in 2024. And it was a fantastic read. It was a fantastic read. I loved it. After When We Were Birds, I read This Poison Heart. And This Poison Heart was written by Kaylin Barron or Bayron. This Poison Heart. She's the one that wrote Cinderella is Dead. And I loved it too, and I'm going to read the sequel. Sometimes I don't like reading the first book in a series if the rest of the series has not come out yet, because I forget the plot in between, and it's just a whole thing. But the second book is out, so I'm going to read it while I still have the first book and its plot sort of in my mind. Yes, you have the Far Sector collection in paperback. There's another DC Comics series called Naomi that has a couple of volumes that you've had on your bookshelf but you haven't touched. Tell me more about this Naomi character. Curious. Thank you. All right. So again, if you are new and joining the chat, please say hi. Let me know what you're reading. Thank you for joining and watching. And do you use the Storygraph? And what are your goals for 2025 in terms of your reading? I'm now in December, and I'm just rounding off the books, and then I'm gonna check Libby and my Audible, and I'm gonna write down any other books that I didn't include in those, and then I'm gonna say goodbye for now. So, I read a book called I Feed Her to the Beast, and the beast is me. I feed her to the beast, and the beast is me. And the beast is me. If you happen to be in the chat and you're open to typing this out for me, that would be really helpful. So I think we have Noor, 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 and then Promise, and then When We Were Birds, and then This Poison Heart. This is good so that when people go back and see the replay, if they watch the chat, then they can see the books written down. So if you could help me out, that would be great while I write in my planner. So Noor, Noor, then Promise, then When We Were Birds, and then This Poison Heart. If you've got a couple hands free to do this, that would be great. Okay, so I Feed Her to the Beast, and the beast is me. So there are a bunch of like horror books with interesting covers that came out a couple of years ago. Like The Black Girl Doesn't Die in this one. I Feed Her to the Beast, and the beast is me. And then Our Sunken Souls. Like there are a number of ones that came out, and I think that they were inspired by, or at least came out in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd in 2020, influenced certainly by Jordan Peele's work. And then there's Jordan Peele's collection of horror. I think it's called We Out Here. And then there are a bunch of people who wrote pieces in that. So Nalo Hopkinson has a piece in that. Tananarive Due has a piece in that. A bunch of horror writers have pieces in that collection as well. So I was like, let me read more of the horror sort of dark stuff. And I really liked I Feed Her to the Beast. That was the one earlier when we were talking, RC, about immersive reading. The I Feed Her to the Beast and The Beast Is Me, that audiobook had a lot of music in it, from what I recall. And it was immersive. I liked it. I also read an independently published book called How to Be an Adult. How to Be an Adult. Very cute. Neurodivergent main character, or neurospicy main character, queer, Black, femme. And if you were into magical books, that was definitely a really good one. Yeah. You've thought of reading her books. I think you're talking about Nnedi Okorafor. I'm not sure. Naomi is basically What If Superman Was a Black Girl. I'm down. That is a speculation I can get behind. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So Noor, Promise, then When We Were Birds, and then This Poison Heart. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Noor, then Promise, then When We Were Birds, and then This Poison Heart, if you're still around. Okay, I think How to Be an Adult might have been the last book I read in 2024. I think. Because December is often very busy. I remember that the last book I read, I really wanted to make sure I left it in 2024. I didn't want to be reading it over into the new year, so I might have read that and then stopped. So now I'm just going to go to my Audible library and see look at my history and see, okay, so listening history, see if there are any books that I missed in 2024.
Audible Studios presents an
I think if you go to your own account, you can see your listen history. So it looks like, I'm not sure if I read title details. If anybody uses Audible, how do I go back to find out when I read a book? The reason I ask is that it looks like I also read God is a Black Woman and River Mama. Yeah, and I want to go back and see like what was my listening history and when did I listen to these books? How do you do that? When I go to my listen history, all I see are the books themselves, but it doesn't really say when I actually listened to them.
This is one.
Maybe, do I have to go to
How to Be a Better Adult?
Manage in Library, Listen Log. Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess I have to go to my library. I have to select the book that I'm curious about.
This is one.
Open it up. And then I have to go to the listen log, and that will tell me when I first played something. So
This is 1.
I guess, but it's kind of not telling me that. Okay, friends, I don't know what to do with this.
This is 1.
Okay. I guess. Oh, okay. So in 2024, I also read Womb City,
This is 1.
which was really good. It was chaotic in a way, though. Yep, I read Womb City by Tlotlo Samase. So I'll write that down as well. Womb City. I read a lot more books than I thought I had. I'm actually surprised that I have more than 10 books read in that year. And I also read River Muma, which was good and set in Toronto. I think I read that over the summer. So if I go to my listening log, I just want to confirm that I did actually read it in 2024. I read it in April. So River Muma, or Mama, River Mama, by Zalika Reed Benta. So I read that one, which I enjoyed. And then I think everything else I've already talked about. Okay. And then now I'm just going to go to Libby. And then once I go to Libby, I'll be able to finalize my 2024 book list. And then I can tell you everything I read. And then I will go. So if you have any last thoughts, questions that you want to ask about my reading or the channel, then you are welcome to do that. Okay, I'm just going to Libby and I'm going to see if I can find my timeline. Okay, activity by year, 2024. Oh, cool. Libby is so great. Oh, so there are no new books. On Libby, I listened to We Are the Crisis, Noor, and When We Were Birds, and This Poison Heart, and I Feed Her to the Beast, and the Beast is Me. Okay, so it looks like those are all my books. So the total list, let's see here. You're referring to wanting to read Kaylin Bayron. You like the idea of Black Sapphic takes on the classics. Yeah, me too. I think Kaylin Bayron has done Snow White or Sleeping Beauty reimagining, which is kind of cool. And then there's of course L.L. McKinney's Alice in Wonderland. I would love for somebody to go back to the Oz world and take care of that. So much to take care of. You use Audible, but you've never tried to loom at that. I don't know what you mean by that. To loom at that, to look at that. Okay, and that's the only way you figured out how to do it, but you have to remember to remark the book is finished. That part. Thank you very much. Okay, so here is the global list of the books that I read in 2024. They are The Color Purple, No Gods, No Monsters, We Are the Crisis, Loving Safwa, Chain Gang All-Stars, Negotiating While Black, Black Stars Collection, Black Heart Man, Creeping of Dogwood House, Noor, Promise, When We Were Birds, This Poison Heart, I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me, How to Be an Adult, Womb City, and River Muma. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I just realized that there's one more source I forgot that I need to look at, and that is Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram by going to Onyx Pages. And let me just take a look at if I have any books. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. I think that's it. Okay. So, in 2024, I read 17 books. I did not set a reading goal. I stopped doing that. I just wanted to read, so I didn't, or at least I didn't set a numerical goal. So thanks very much for watching, everyone, and thanks for those who have been communicating with me in the live chat. I appreciate that. And any last thoughts? I just want to let you know that I found your channel when I read The Wizard of the Wizard of the Wild Deeps. The Wizard of the Wild Deeps. Do you mean Sweet Like Honey and what was it of the wild? It wasn't The Wizard of the Wild Deeps. It was now it's gonna bug me. That story was so good. It wasn't even Sweet Like Honey. It's Wild Deeps. The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps. The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps, and then by Kai Ashanti Wilson. And then what was their first book? Is it called Sweet Like Honey? A Taste of Honey. A Taste of Honey and Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps. So good. So I want to let you know I found your channel when I read The Wizard of the Wild Deeps, and your channel was the only one that gave a good review, analyzing it instead of dismissing it out of bias. Well, you're welcome. And yeah, I think Kai Ashanti Wilson is such a great writer, and I really enjoyed A Taste of Honey, and that got me into Kai Ashanti Wilson's writing. I had previously read some short stories by them. And goodness, there was just so much there. There's so much there, that exodus, walking across the desert, that love relationship, trying to figure out, like, no need to apologize. There's so much in Kai Ashanti Wilson's writing, and I really enjoyed it. I haven't read much of their writing since Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps, but that's just because I go through writing moods, and I'm not sure what they've written since then, so I have to check. But great. Glad that you found the channel. Glad that you are engaging. I appreciate that. Okay. Any hints on when I'm starting my next slow read? Okay, so first of all, very presumptuous of you, RC. Am I even doing another slow read? I will say that it was, the slow read was an incredible accomplishment. I am so proud of the team and what we were able to accomplish. I'm glad that it lives online, and that people can follow it. It was a 2-year commitment. It was a lot. Slow reads of an entire body of work, really difficult. And so I'm glad that we were able to accomplish it. I don't know if I'm going to do another slow read. I have thought about it. I think it's easier to do a slow read when the person is no longer with us or no longer writing, because then you can treat the body of work as a complete set of writing. I think when the person is still publishing works, there's a question as to, like, the value. Like, are you able to see everything together at once? And so what would the approach be if you did a slow read of somebody who's, like, pumping out stuff really quickly? Like, so for example, I did consider doing a slow read of Eugen Bacon's work, but, like, she publishes 5 million books a year. I don't know when she sleeps. She's amazing. Mage of Fools was so good. So many of her books are so amazing. And you know, if you want to do a slow read of somebody like that, they're publishing faster than you're reading. It's like it would never end. So I considered that. I also considered doing a slow read of a series. So maybe like Karen Lord, for example, right? Like she has 3 or 4 books in the same world. She's got I forget the names. I'm probably going to forget Redemption in Indigo, Beautiful Blue World, and I always forget the first one. Another Time is Possible or something like that. But she has 3 or 4 books that are written in the same world, and I thought, what if we read those 4 one after the other and experience them together? So I'm not sure. I also thought of Nalla Hopkinson, but Nalla Hopkinson is writing and publishing, and so when would that end, right? But I mean, I guess the other point is that slow reading isn't just about, it doesn't need to be about a person's body of work. There could be like a slow read based on themes like mermaids or lesbian vampires, right? And we're reading in a theme. So what I will say is that the solar powered Afrofuturism slow reading group will be going through a renaissance and will be making an appearance in 2025. We're in the early stages of planning. And so if you do want to read with me, or read in community for Black speculative fiction, then you can find the solar powered, it's SOULAR, solar powered Afrofuturism slow reading group. We are on Facebook because we were born in a decade and that's the platform that we're on. And you can request to be added to that group, and then you'll have our book club list in our readings. And so you can join us there if you're interested. I'm not sure about a slow read yet, but if I do one in 2025, I probably won't do one in 2025, but if I do one in the future, it will be posted with enough time to get the books together and so on. But I definitely, thank you, yes, it is worth a try. I definitely support anybody who wants to do it themselves. So if you do one, please let me know, and I will join if I can, because there are a lot of really good community building elements of slow reads that I do miss. Kai Shanti Wilson has one called The Devil in, yes, that was that a novella? Was that their first? The Devil in America. I have to read that. It's a good time to read that, isn't it? The Devil in America. Is it it's a book. It's a book. It's a novella. Let's see. It seems like it's an ebook, a Tor.com ebook. You know, I don't really read ebooks, and that's hard because then you miss out on some great things. Let me just see. The Devil in America. I'm just wondering, was it ever, you can get it on Kindle. Was it ever in paperback? So Tor Books published it, 49 pages. Let's go to Tor Books. Tor Books is, if you can get on their list, just Tor Publishing, amazing science fiction, fantasy titles. They're so great. I'm going to put myself back on their newsletter because, because it's great. So I'm doing that right now. And then there's also so many magazines and stuff. Just, so much out there. Okay. All right. So I've signed up for their newsletter. Okay. Let's just see their books. Devil in America. Devil Devil in America. The Devil in America by Kai Shanti Wilson. It's just Audible. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, I guess I'll have to see if I can. I don't think it did. It come out in paperback? Seems like you could have bought it from Barnes and Noble. It looks like you can't anymore. So what format did you read it in? Please let me know. I can probably get it on Google. Not Google, on Libby. Yeah, I would like to read that. Maybe that'll be on the list for this year. Okay. Okay. All right, friends, I'm going to draw the line here. So nice to see everyone. Thank you for joining. Remember always to read with purpose. And when you do, please let me know about it in the comments. Have a wonderful start to the new year, and I will see you the next time I go live. Bye.